Since I began my official work with horses in 2004, I've come across so many ideas about how we should train and handle our horses. Some vastly improved my results, while others unfortunately set me and my horses back despite being really popular. These ideas are often referred to as training principles. Over the past 2 decades, I've tried and tested other trainers' principles, done my research, adopted some, discarded others, and ultimately I've pruned and nurtured my own. These have drastically improved my results. They've literally changed everything for me in terms of my interaction with horses. And they now form the foundation of everything that I do with the horses that I work with. And I'm going to share these with you today. My first principle is a little different than what I've seen with other trainers because it covers more than just our time training. Set them up for success means doing everything we can to help the horse achieve success easily. Just like humans, horses don't like feeling stupid or incapable, so setting them up to find success easily boosts confidence and makes training enjoyable and something that they want to do in the future. The first part of setting them up for success begins with meeting core welfare needs. Most of the so-called problem horses that I work with are the way that they are because despite their owner's best intentions, they have core needs that aren't being met. Maslow's hierarchy of needs hypothesizes that learning is impossible until foundational physical and emotional requirements are met. Learners must feel safe, nourished, and socially connected before they can engage in higher level cognitive tasks or reach their full potential. This applies to all mammals, including horses. A horse can only succeed in training once their foundational physiological and safety needs are fully met, because these lower level needs regulate the nervous system and determine whether learning is even possible. A horse who's hungry, uncomfortable, in pain, or lacking rest remains in a resource-seeking state. And a horse who feels unsafe physically or emotionally operates from vigilance and survival rather than curiosity or cooperation. Most people think of things like shelter, water, food as core needs, and yes, they are, but it goes so much deeper than this. The core needs of any specific animal are dictated by how they've evolved. As relatively defenseless humans, we developed brains that could alter our environment to outsmart things that threaten our survival. We live in houses to stay safe and warm because we're not particularly fast, we don't have claws or fangs, and we don't have a thick coat to help protect ourselves. Horses, on the other hand, developed large bodies, the uncanny ability to spot potential danger, and the capacity to get away from it as fast as possible. Spotting and evading danger means living in herds and wide open spaces and not second-guessing your gut feel. Unfortunately, many horses are not kept in environments that they are designed for. A cushy stable, carefully maintained individual paddock, and a few meals a day is not actually meeting a horse's basic needs as much as we probably feel really great about giving it to them. What horses actually need are things like space to move freely, as in walk, trot, canter, gallop, buck, play, without human supervision. In the wild, horses move up to 20 kilometers or 12 miles per day. They explore, they can watch for danger, they can move away if they feel they need to. A hot walker and a lunge ring are unfortunately just not going to cut it. And now, having evolved to live in herds, they actually need to be able to interact with other horses. I'm talking mutual grooming, I swish your flies, you swish my flies, games of bitey face, and real rough housing if they so choose. This releases all kinds of happy hormones that reduce anxiety, and without this kind of interaction, anxiety abounds. And finally, they need access to low-nutrient fibrous grasses 24/7. Unlike humans who have a start-stop type of diet, horses evolved to eat what grows in wide open spaces. Because of the low nutrition of the grasses they ate, they had to eat constantly. And because they were eating constantly, they didn't develop a gallbladder. They're not designed for stop-start eating. So their bile flows freely all day and all night long. Being able to see other horses is not enough. Being able to move under human supervision for an hour or two a day is not enough. Going without hay for more than 2 hours is a terrible idea. Horses that don't have these needs met are going to be anxious and not in the best state for learning. So, to set them up for success, you need to first make sure that they have real access to friends, real access to forage, and real freedom. Next on the set them up for success list is ensuring optimal physical comfort. Regular body work, so chiropractor, physio, osteopath, regularly maintained hooves, dental work. And a big one that a lot of people actually still overlook is correctly fitting tack. A poorly fitting saddle, poorly fitting girth, bridle, or bits can cause a horse pain, and a horse in pain is not a horse in a good learning state. Being prey animals, horses are very stoic. They don't show their feelings, obviously, because if they did, the predators would know that they're a soft target and go for them, so they hide their pain. Regular saddle fitting and getting your bit and bridle fitted to your horse specifically can resolve a huge number of issues that you might be facing and will promote your horse's enjoyment of sessions with you and basically ensure that they are in a positive state for learning. Next, we need to ensure that training occurs in environments which are conducive to learning. Now, don't be fooled by the picture. I am not talking about a fancy arena. I'm talking about an environment where the horse feels safe enough to learn. Maybe it means friends within sight. Maybe it means nothing they're scared of nearby. Maybe an indoor arena terrifies them. That's not where they're going to feel safe enough to learn. A horse has to feel safe in order to learn. And then finally, set them up for success, the actual training part. Means we need to ask questions they can figure out the answers to, and we need to make the right answers obvious. When a child is learning how to count, it would be unfair to expect them to get an addition or multiplication question right. And the same applies to horses. Now, if anything goes wrong in training, we should ultimately ask ourselves, was this horse set up for success? Usually the challenges we face are because the answer is no. Now, part of setting our horses up for success is actually showing that you're present with them. Horses feel secure when there are multiple eyes and ears scanning the environment. That's how prey animals survive. So they live largely in the present moment, constantly tracking their environment for threats. Humans, by contrast, are often mentally elsewhere, thinking about last week, next week, what others think of our riding. We're on our phones, we're chatting with our friends, we're not really paying attention. And that absence of presence can make a horse feel exposed, like no one is on duty. So show your presence means offering the kind of attuned awareness that herd animals rely on for safety. We can do this by noticing what the horse notices. What's that over there? Stop and have a look. Give them, 15 to 30 seconds to actually check something out without, pressuring them to get back to the session. If you see that they've got an itch, go and scratch it for them. We show them through these things that we are a reliable security guard because we're aware and we're engaged. This shared attention communicates safety and partnership, helps the horse relax with us rather than feeling that they've got to stay hypervigilant because they're alone. A horse that feels safe, again, is a horse that's able to learn. My third principle ties into that whole, safety and feeling safe is the best state for learning. And it's called positive vibes only. This means protecting the emotional quality of every experience that your horse has with you, because a horse will always remember how you made it feel rather than just what you taught. Training can be frustrating, draining, stressful, or even tiring for a horse, especially when we're focused on goals, progress, or perfection and miss the signs that they are actually becoming a bit worried or stressed out or frustrated and so forth. If we push through those moments, motivation and willingness erode. So our job is to first notice how our horse is feeling by paying attention to their subtle communication. They communicate continuously about how they feel. But we obviously, because we're not as present as they are and not as in tune with their subtle communication, we often miss what they communicated. Because of the structure of their brain, horses can't lie about how they feel. They also can't talk themselves out of feeling the way they do like we can. So they're constantly communicating about how they feel about everything, very subtly. To start off with, if we miss the subtle communication, it'll escalate to things like shying and spooking and bucking and rearing and bolting. So positive vibes only is about paying close attention to the horse's subtle communication about its internal state and responding before those signals have to be escalated into big behaviors like shying, bolting, bucking, or even shutting down. Horses always show early warning signs: a raised head, wider eyes, fixed or frantic ears, a glance towards an escape route, a change in breathing, tightening of the muzzle, a tension in their body. When we notice and act on these small signs by, for example, pausing, offering a break, increasing distance from what they're worried about, allowing them to look at something, or dismounting or helping the horse regulate, we help them empty their worry cup before it spills over. Most people miss these whispers because they're not paying attention, and they only realize there's a problem once the horse is shouting. The real art of horsemanship and achieving success with horses lies in catching the earliest signs of anxiety and frustration. When we listen at that level, the horse feels understood, protected, and safe enough to stay in a learning frame rather than a survival one. Our next job after noticing is to de-escalate, so preserve confidence and trust. Move away from the scary objects, move out of a stressful environment, dismount, take a break, move to an exercise the horse can easily do successfully. This keeps the emotional tone light, keeps the horse feeling safe, and encourages them to offer more and to engage. When we prioritize positive vibes, the horse stays enthusiastic, connected, and eager to try, because the experience consistently feels good rather than taxing. If you think of them like a bank account, everything we ask them to do is like a withdrawal. We need to make sure that there's a positive bank balance at all times. Just like humans, when horses have a bad time, they're more likely to avoid that situation in the future. And this might show up as a horse that's difficult to catch, won't stand to be tacked or mounted, refuses to enter the arena, or bucks its rider off and bolts for home. So if we do come across these issues, we need to ask ourselves, did I ensure that there were positive vibes only? Usually the answer is no. And now, this is not just about how the horse feels. This is also about how we feel. There's a lot of promoting overcoming fear and pushing through dangerous situations in the equestrian industry. And over the last 20 years, what I've come to realize is that fear isn't an enemy to conquer or a barrier to push through. It's information. It's a biological safety signal designed to keep us alive. And learning to ignore it or push through it can actually spread wider than just our horsey interactions. We start ignoring those gut feels that tell us not to walk down that dodgy, dark alleyway. And something bad ends up happening because we didn't listen to our fear. Bravery isn't forged by surviving close calls. It's built through small, successful experiences in the presence of manageable worry. I'm not talking about not doing anything because we're a little bit worried. I'm talking about assessing the situation and establishing whether there is real danger or not. With horses, there often is. When we respect our emotions, adjust our plans, and choose the next doable step rather than this heroic leap, we create the same positive vibe for ourselves that we aim to create for the horse. And that steadiness becomes part of the partnership with both horse and human, learning that we can make progress while still feeling safe, supported, and genuinely good. And that's where real confidence is built. Being afraid doesn't build confidence. Succeeding and overcoming a little bit of stress, a little bit of worry, that's where confidence is built. My next principle is supercalifragilistic. Good old Mary Poppins. Supercalifragilistic is the art of breaking learning into tiny, manageable slices, just like teaching a toddler to say supercalifragilistic. You wouldn't expect them to get the whole word right at once. You'd shape it syllable by syllable, celebrating every little success. Teaching horses something new needs to happen in exactly the same way. When we split every task into micro-components, we remove overwhelm, we create clarity, and we make each step achievable, which boosts confidence. Crucially, we have to reinforce the smallest correct guesses or tries, the tiny moments where the horse leans in the right direction, or offers the first hint of whatever behavior you're asking. These micro successes are gold. Reinforcing them builds confidence, motivation, and understanding long before the full behavior appears. Once each slice is solid, calm, and reliable on its own, we can combine the slices, allowing the complete behavior to emerge naturally and without stress. So, for example, with your toddler, you might ask them to say soup first and really celebrate that with them. Then maybe super. Maybe you would teach Callie as a separate thing, get that right first, and then you would combine them to say super Calla, and so on and so forth. You need to do the same thing with your horse. This approach creates horses who actually learn faster, stay enthusiastic, and feel proud of their progress because every step was small enough to win. And this ties back to set them up for success and positive vibes only. Principle number 5 is show appreciation generously and often. When a horse offers us a correct behavior and receives reinforcement, its brain releases dopamine, which is the anticipation and learning hormone that creates a sense of motivation and satisfaction and makes that behavior more likely in the future. But when dopamine spikes too often or too intensely, the animal can become overexcited, hypervigilant, impulsive, or unable to settle. In training, this can look like a horse that becomes frantic, overeager, easily frustrated, or stuck in a cycle of guessing rather than thinking. On the flip side, when a horse isn't reinforced, becomes confused, or experiences punishment, dopamine drops instead of rising, and the nervous system shifts towards stress chemistry. Cortisol increases, narrowing focus and reducing exploratory behavior, which is terrible for learning, and adrenaline can surge, creating tension, reactivity, and flight responses. Together, these changes push the horse out of a learning state and into a survival-oriented one. Show appreciation generously and often is about balancing dopamine and reducing cortisol and adrenaline by nourishing the horse's sense of connection. It's not about delivering a reward. Appreciation taps into oxytocin, which is the neurochemical of safety, bonding, and belonging. Many people overlook this layer entirely, focusing only on shaping behavior and forgetting to support the horse's emotional world. Oxytocin acts as a regulator that softens and balances dopamine's sharp motivational edge. So where dopamine drives seeking, effort, and anticipation, oxytocin promotes calm connection, safety, and social bonding, which also helps as a counter, as an antidote, basically, for cortisol and adrenaline. In horses, oxytocin helps the horse's nervous system shift from high alert, must figure this out, or high alert, I'm stressed, to I feel safe enough to think. In practice, oxytocin stabilizes learning by reducing stress, improving focus, and keeping dopamine responses within a healthy, workable range. But overall, who doesn't like feeling like a good, clever girl or boy? Appreciation should be frequent, sincere, and biologically meaningful. Scratches rather than pats. The only time a horse would pat another horse is with the hind hoof. Warm verbal praise and chill breaks that let the horse's nervous system soften and feel seen. These moments communicate you matter. When appreciation is abundant, the horse becomes more confident, connected, and willing, not because it's chasing a reward, but because it feels secure with you. Principle number 6 is never reinforce the wrong answer. And it means being crystal clear about what behavior you're actually looking for, what behavior you want to see more of. When a horse offers an undesirable response and we reinforce it, even accidentally, for example, by stopping a cue, taking a break, or offering a treat, we teach them that the wrong thing is right. Just like us, horses learn from what works, so if the wrong answer works, it becomes the new correct answer in their mind, and you'll see more of that behavior. Like asking a kid what's 1 + 1 and they say 6 and we say cool, we're setting the kid up to fail its first test. Or a child having a meltdown because we won't buy the toy they want and we eventually give in. They're only learning to tantrum longer to get what they want. To prevent reinforcing the wrong answer, we need to maintain our cues and withhold the treats until the horse offers at least a smidge of the correct response. When we're consistent about reinforcing only the correct answer, the horse learns cleanly, confidently, and quickly, building a reliable understanding of what each cue truly means. Anyone ever have a boss who constantly changed the goalposts? We don't feel safe when the right thing isn't always right and the wrong thing isn't always the wrong thing. All of this said, remember, if our horse isn't giving us the right answer because we haven't set them up for success, for example, we've asked too much, or they genuinely don't know what the answer is, or if they are not in a learning state of mind due to pain, fear, overwhelm, exhaustion, and so forth, then the reason they're not giving the right answer is on us, and not releasing the cue, even though they aren't giving the right behavior, isn't really fair. Also, remember, positive vibes only. If the horse seems confused, overwhelmed, or stuck, it's absolutely fine to back down, soften, and check understanding. Persisting with a cue that your horse clearly doesn't understand is like shouting louder at someone in a foreign language. Clarity is kind, and stopping to revisit an earlier slice isn't the end of the world. It's helping the horse succeed, and it's maintaining positive vibes. Principle number 7 is don't shout before you whisper. It's an adaptation of heartfelt horsemanship's as gentle as possible but as firm as necessary. And it's what Warwick Schiller calls the application of your aids, or the order of cues, the ordered, gradual progression from whisper to shout. Horses are exquisitely sensitive to subtle communication. They notice the smallest shifts in our posture, our energy, long before we think we've actually asked anything. When we begin with a big cue, a shout, we risk overshadowing a smaller, more subtle cue that we actually would like to teach. So the horse learns to respond only to the loud aid because the more subtle one was drowned out. Starting with the softest, most delicate cue and gradually increasing, if we need to, builds lightness. Think of teaching a horse how to go bitless or bridleless. A bit is a shout. A horse is never going to learn to pay attention to the shift in your body weight as a slow down cue if you're always relying on your hands and the bit in its mouth. Principle number 8, give them a chance to respond, means recognizing that, at least initially, gentle cues take time for a horse to notice and interpret. Loud cues are easy to detect, but subtle ones, light pressure, shift in your weight, require learning, and that learning only happens when we give the horse space to search for the answer. If we escalate from a whisper to a shout too quickly, we risk causing frustration or creating a horse that requires a louder cue. Giving the horse at least a count of 4 to process, think, and respond to a cue before we escalate to something louder or firmer builds understanding, softness, and confidence. When we consistently allow time before escalating, the horse becomes lighter, more responsive, and more attuned. Principle number 9 is never micromanage, and it means asking the horse to do something and then letting it do it. Think of sitting in a car while someone else is driving and continuously saying, drive, 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 while they're already doing it. They'd probably ask you to stop because it's annoying and irrelevant. And if you don't, they'd probably, turn the music up and try to ignore you. Horses feel exactly the same when we keep nagging with our aids after they've already responded. And yet many of us are taught to do exactly that with our horses, or we use equipment that does exactly that with our horses. For example, we ask them to walk and then squeeze our legs at every step. Or we put them out on a lunge circle and then continuously drive them around as if they weren't going around as we asked them to. What this unfortunately does is teach the horse either to be micromanaged or to ignore us. So the minute we stop saying drive, 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 either they stop driving, or maybe what they do is they learn that actually pressure on the bit doesn't really mean anything. What should be happening is this: once the horse begins doing what we ask, walking on, maintaining a circle, staying connected, holding a posture, we leave them alone. Let them carry out the task without constant input and only re-cue if the horse stops doing what you asked. When we stop micromanaging, the horse learns to maintain behaviors. This builds a horse that doesn't need to be constantly nagged, corrected, or chased, so you can sit back and enjoy the ride. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Principle number 10 is give soak time. And what it means is building deliberate pauses, deliberate breaks into training so that the horse's nervous system can settle, integrate, and they can really think about and understand what just happened. What did they just learn? Horses don't operate in a human go, go, go rhythm. They learn in waves with moments of effort, followed by moments of quiet. And actually, humans do kind of learn like that too. I remember when I was in my second year of high school, I actually wasn't put into a maths class, and I went to the head of the maths department, and she looked at my marks from previous year and put me into the top set, which was probably the worst thing we could have done, because the top set moved so quickly that I didn't have time to actually process. And what happened was I just became completely overwhelmed. I wasn't able to keep up. I wasn't able to manage with the pace, and my confidence was ultimately eroded, and maths ended up being my worst subject when I matriculated from school. So these downtime intervals help to empty the worry cup and give the brain space to consolidate new information. To people, this can feel like slowing down or losing momentum, but in reality, it actually accelerates learning because the horse stays regulated, confident, and able to think. Without processing time, cues can blur together, excitement and anxiety can rise, and the horse shifts into coping rather than understanding, like me in my maths class. With the soak time, the horse becomes more relaxed, more accurate, and more willing because the pace actually matches the way that horses are wired to learn. So take a break in between exercises, take a break in between teaching different cues, and even consider ending a session if the horse is really, given its best at an exercise that maybe it struggled with previously, or it's mastered a movement. End the session and come back to it, even if it's been a 5-minute session. The next time you come back to it, that horse, I guarantee you, will be better at whatever you were teaching it. Which brings us to principle number 12, last but not least, don't drill. This principle is about avoiding the trap of repeating an exercise so many times that the horse's enthusiasm drops. Horses are highly sensitive to monotony. Doing the same thing over and over again quickly shifts them from curious and engaged to dull, frustrated, or simply checked out. Think of, me learning to play the piano as a little girl and enjoying the first few scales, maybe enjoying the first song, but really just becoming frustrated and bored after I had to repeat it over and over again. So what you want to do is aim for a couple of good repetitions, then offer a break, switch to something different, or even end the session on that high note. This might fly in the face of, well, I've got an hour-long session, but it keeps motivation alive because the horse feels successful rather than pressured. It also strengthens learning, so short, varied bursts followed by rest allow the nervous system to consolidate information far more effectively than endless repetition. Think of soak time. When we stop drilling, we preserve the horse's spark, and progress actually accelerates because the horse stays willing, fresh, and mentally present. Now, a trainer's principles of training and method are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to achieving success with horses. Horses are complex beings, and while a 30-minute video of horse training catchphrases might help you, there is no ways it is going to teach you everything you need to know. Even watching how-to videos and taking lessons is not going to do it. And that's because mainstream equestrianism leaves massive gaps in what it teaches us. And these gaps are responsible for 99% of problem behavior, dangerous situations, and plateauing results. When you fill those gaps, you end up understanding horses at a level that the vast majority of horse people simply never reach. You become able to solve and prevent problem behavior, avoid dangerous situations, and massively improve your results. Following someone else's principles or method without understanding the neurobiological, psychological, and other foundations of how horses learn means you're essentially a dancer memorizing steps in someone else's choreography. You're not creating the dance, you're repeating it. And this means that when you're faced with different music, you're going to be unsure of what to do. Real success with horses comes from becoming the choreographer. Choreographers don't just learn steps and movements. They understand how the body works, how rhythm works, how patterns emerge, how motives evolve, and how dynamics shape meaning. They know how to structure movement into a coherent, intentional piece of art. Training principles are just a few down steps. Exceptional results happen when you understand the system beneath the steps. Exceptional results happen when you understand how equine brain structure influences learning, what neuroplasticity means for behavior change, how polyvagal theory applies to horses, and how learning theory actually plays out in real interactions, not just in textbooks. And that's just to do with how horses learn, never mind everything else to do with how they actually operate. If you want to go deeper than principles and methods and lessons in a way that's clear, practical, and immediately applicable, my course on How Horses Learn covers all of this with real-world examples you can start using right away. This course boils over 20 years of hard-earned understanding, studying, attending workshops, reading, lessons, trial and error, into a 6-hour course that is guaranteed to improve your results with your horse, no matter your discipline, what method you follow, or whether you're a seasoned pro just starting out or simply a paddock ornament collector. It's the difference between being another horse person following a method and being the person who truly understands the science behind behavior and learning in a horse context. By taking this course, you'll be operating with knowledge that genuinely sets you apart. You'll understand more about how horses think and learn than 99% of people in the industry, because you'll be working from the science that mainstream training rarely touches. To sign up, visit www.zenithhorseandhuman.com/courses.